everybody, today we're looking at Wine 11.13, the latest development release of Windows compatibility layer that lets you run Windows applications and games on Linux, Mac, and other Unix-like systems. This build isn't just another quiet point release, it brings better pointers, input handling, improved X11 keyboards, scan code mapping, ARM64EC optimization, and batch of 22 bug fixes that touches both legacy app and modern gaming. Let's unpack what's actually changed and why it matters. Wine 11.13 is part of X11 development cycle, released on a roughly bi-weekly cadence. These development builds are where new features land, regressions and get fixed, and performance tweaks are tested before they are eventually rolled out into a future stable release. So if you're running a mission-critical workstation, the recommendation is still to stick with the stable Wine 11 branch for a curated Proton build. But if you like living on the edge, testing new code paths, you're chasing a specific bug fix, 11.13 is worth the look. Better headline change, better support for input pointers. In practical terms, this means Wine has tightened how it tracks and handles pointers, inputs, your mouse, trackpad, or other pointer device, especially across threads and complex input scenarios. For users, this can translate into more consistent pointer behavior in older Windows apps that expect very specific input states. Fewer weird edge cases where the cursor desyncs and gets stuck between different than the app expects. Smoother multi-pointer flow, which matters for certain specialized software and some games. It's not flashy feature, but it's kind of low-level polish that makes Wine feel less hacky and more like a native environment. Improved X11 keyboard scan code mapping. Next up, improved keyboard scan code mapping on X11. If you're running Wine under X Origin X11, you've probably seen an occasional quirk where the physical key press didn't quite line up with what Windows app thinks you pressed, especially with non-US layouts, function keys, or custom bindings. This release tightens that mapping layer so that physical key presses are translated more accurately into Windows scan codes. Keyboard shortcuts or hotkeys behave more predictably. Non-standard layout VIP tweaks, environments see fewer input surprises. For gamers, this can mean more reliable keybind. For power users and developers, it's one less friction point when working across the platform. ARM64EC is a FFmpeg optimization. Wine 13 also brings FFmpeg optimization for ARM64EC. ARM64EC is Microsoft's hybrid ABI for Windows on ARMs. It allows ARM64 code to coexist with x64 components. In the same process, Wine tapping into FFmpeg MPEG accessibility optimized for ARM64EC means better multimedia performance in certain scenarios on ARM-based systems, more efficient audio-video processing when Wine relies on FFmpeg for decoding or scaling. A small but important step toward more mature support for ARM platforms, including features on Mac OS and Apple Silicon backend. Right now, this is niche, which is clearly part of a longer-term strategy. Wine isn't just a Linux on x86 story anymore. 22 bug fixes, game apps, and core components. Other big headline is that 22 bug fixes that landed in the cycle. These touch on a wide range of software, games, Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, Startup Crash has been addressed, Age of Mythology, initialization fail errors have been fixed, Tale of Zestra's launch issued with the Steam runtime are resolved. Requiem, Avenging Angel no longer shows black screen in game. Screwbug Bus Haven, camera problems have been fixed. Productivity legacy apps, Adobe Acrobat Pro 7 and Acrobat Reader 7 issues with comments and crashes are addressed. Sony Acid Pro 7.0 startup crash during initializations are fixed. App using the old Visual Basic runtime, see crash fixes. Office 2000 installer via MSI exec should now complete without crashing. Wine config buttons are now clickable on the DPI. Isn't set to 96. Virtual desktop mode no longer breaks Windows creation. Explorer no longer creates an extra virtual desktop when launched with the desktop shell. Text and rendering, broken Cyrillic text in Winbox has been fixed. Draw text, render bug with ellipse flag, and the path ellipse are corrected. Low-level performance fixes, 2D, direct 2D paths, geometry leaks that cause steady heat growth under sustained rendering are patched. Set jump and long jump regressions in MSB CTR on x86 64 ELF builds are fixed. Exit unwind, handling and unwinding test cases have been corrected in the NTDLL and related components. This mix fixes show Wine's usual pattern. Every dev release quietly cleans up a long-standing edge case that only shows up in specific apps, but collectively they make the platform feel more reliable. So should you jump on Wine 13 right now? Yes, if you've been hit by any of the specific bugs mentioned. GTA, Vice City, Age of Mythology, Tales of Zestra, Adobe Acrobat 7, Sony Acid Pro 7, Office 2000 installer, Acrylics, text issues, virtual desktop ports. You're testing Wine on ARM or care about ARM 64 EC performance. You like tracking the development branch and don't mind occasional regression. Probably not if your system is a daily driver and state stability is more important than new features. You're probably already happy with the stable Wine 11 or Proton setup, and nothing here solves a pain point you have. Remember, development releases are meant for testing and feedback. If you do upgrade, keep an eye on your key apps and games and be ready for rollback if something regresses. You can grab the source tarball for Wine projects. Download channel and binary packages will roll out through the usual distro repositories and third-party maintainers. If you're on the mainstream Linux distribution, you'll typically see Wine 13.11 appear. Where distros testing or developing repository or third-party Wine builds on PPAs that track the dev branch. Always check release notes and distro documents before mixing stable and dev builds on the same system. Wine 11.13 isn't a massive headline release, but it's a solid step forward. Better pointer, input handling, more accurate X11 keyboard mapping, ARM64EC multimedia optimization, and meaningful set of bug fixes across the game legacy apps and core components. If any of those changes touch your workflow or your favorite game, this dev build is worth a spin. If not, it's still a sign that Wine development cadence is healthy and focused on real-world friction points. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe, and share with someone who's trying to escape dual boot purgatory. And in the comments, tell me which Windows app or game is your personal litmus test for Wine. And we'll see you again. Have a good morning.